Hello everyone. We will try to solve for the area if there will be an area to be enclosed by only two boundaries. One is the square of y is equal to x. The other, the square of y is equal to 2 minus x. And of course, our given will be the two boundaries. It's very important that we plot them for us to be able to realize or determine which boundary is to the left, which boundary is to the right, which boundary is up or above, and which among the boundaries is located below. Right, our unknown, we will assume or denote area with capital letter A. Now we will start of course with the easiest boundary to plot, and simplicity tells us that it's going to be the first boundary, which is the square of y is equal to x. This is nonlinear however, and therefore we need at least 3 points to be able to roughly sketch its graph. And the easiest method is of course to determine points will be the intercept method. These are points of intersection between the graph and any of the two reference axes. Now if we set x as 0, we will be able to solve y as 0, and this is the so-called when we set x as 0, we are trying to solve for the y-intercept. Our y-intercept is at 0, 0, and this is actually at the origin. Now since we need 3 points and we only have a point, no, there is only one intercept, because when we set y to 0, we will also end up with the same point. And graphing it, there's the graph. Alright, that's the plot of the point. So we need 2 more points, and we can do that by assuming other points on this particular region here. That is, say, what do we do? Okay, let's try if the graph of the function will pass through x is equal to -1. When we substitute that to x, which is right there, then we will end up with the square of y is equal to -1, and the square root of -1 is undefined. Therefore, sad to say, our function will never cover this part of our coordinate axis. Hindi siya mapupunta rito, because every time mag-negative ang ating x, ang ating y will become undefined. So the choice actually of -1 is but arbitrary, no? Tinry lang po natin kasi pwede rin naman tayo nag-try ng say x is equal to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or pwede rin actually y, no? Positive 1, positive 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, try naman po natin ang ang region dito, wherein ang x natin ay positive, say 1, and we will find out that the square root of 1 of course will have two values. One is positive, the other one is negative. Thus we will come up with 2 points. Actually, when x is 1, y is 1, and when x is 1, y is -1. Let us now plot these 2 points po on our coordinate axis. Point B will be somewhere here, right there. That's going to be point B, and then point C will be somewhere here, right? This is going to be point B, and that's going to be point C. Now actually meron na po tayong 3 points, and we can now have a rough estimate of the graph of this function. Now this is nonlinear, therefore nonlinear po siya. Hindi po straight line, hindi line ang ating graph or any part of the graph of the function, but a curve. And lalapis po muna ako ang itsura niya will be somewhere like that, no? It's actually a parabola that opens opens to the right. There. That's gonna be the rough estimate of the graph of our function. Yan. Yan na po siya. Jaran. Alright. But our second boundary po is another non-linear function because of course the exponent of y is 2. So either of the two po. Pagka hindi 1 ang exponent ng either of x or y or both, then non-linear po ang ating function. And also we need at least 3 points. Now ang kagandahan po nito in this case, pwede rin po tayong gumamit ng intercept method pero mas tawag natin doon, mas appropriate po in this case since we only have 2 boundaries na gumamit po tayo ng intersection method. Kasi kung magkaroon po tayo ng area anywhere here, there's gonna be 2 intersections, at least 2 intersections between the 2 boundaries kasi dalawa lang po sila eh. Pagka isa lang po ang intersection, hindi tayo magkakaroon ng enclosed surface, di po ba? Or mas malala kung walang intersection, di ba? Kung nandito yung isa, so nasan yung enclosed area? So dapat it's gonna be somewhere here, magkaroon tayo ng dalawang intersection or pa ganyan. Okay? So how do we solve for the intersections of this boundary and the boundary we are about to graph right there? Now, ang method na gagamitin po natin is the solution to simultaneous equations having 2 unknowns. Right, to solve for the intersections, meron tayong 2 equations, equation 1, equation 2. And then, we have 1, 2 unknowns. We will solve the 2 simultaneously. Kung ano man po yung common solution or solutions will be the intersection of the graph of the 2 functions. Obviously po, we can use substitution because itong dalawa equal ano po. So let's do it. Substitution method. Ayan. Right, using substitution po, what we did is to, since equal yung dalawa, we may substitute this over there. Yun po yung ginawa natin. Or pwede rin actually ito, ilagay natin din eh. So, parehas lang magiging result. We will come up with x is equal to 1. So, isang coordinate lang po, x coordinate lang po. So, what about the y coordinate of this intersection? Meron po tayong dalawang options to solve for the y coordinate. We may use equation 1 or equation 2. Pero syempre, simpler kaya ang equation 2, kaya siya po yung ginamit natin din eh. Ano, kung maalala nyo actually, balikan natin sa likod. Diyan. Ayan. Dito po yan. Ayan po siya. Replay. Replay. So in other words, itong dalawang points na to will serve as the intersections of the 2 graphs. So ang problema na lang natin is anong hitsura nung second what do you call the second boundary? Will it be paganyan or paganon? That we will know by determining the value or by testing whether nandito ba banda yung ating graph ng second boundary or nandito banda. Alright? Isang magandang paraan po to determine kung anong itsura roughly nung ating second boundary since definitely dadaan siya sa x-axis no? Wherein ang y natin dito is 0. So why not mag-substitute po tayo ng 0 dito sa second boundary dito po, yan sana ko nakaturo, ayan. Pag ito po kaya nag-0, anong value ng x natin no? So gawin po natin yun sa likod ano? Yan, our second boundary. Alright. So again, balikan po natin. We used substitution as the intersection method and we come up with 2 intersections. Now since non-linear po itong boundary natin, we need another point, at least one more point. Alam natin again that the second boundary, para ma-intersect niya itong dalawang ito, points na to, dapat dadaan siya rito sa x-axis, di po ba? That is, ang y natin dito sa x-axis is always 0. Kaya po, what we did is to assume y to be 0. This is actually a so-called x-intercept. And we come up with x is equal to 2. So therefore, we will have a third point for our second boundary. Let's say that's point D. And the coordinates are 2, 0. Right? Alright, andyan na po si point D. So ano pong itsura ng curve natin? This is also another parabola that opens naman to the left this time. Yan. So magkakaroon din po tayo actually ng dalawang y-intercept. Pero hindi naman na yun po material, no? Kasi ang area po natin is nandito po banda. Meron pa tayong enclosed surface, no? Ayan. So ayusin lang po natin itong diagram natin, no? Sa kabilang page para po mag-analyze na tayo. Alright? Okay, roughly ganyan po ang itsura ng ating graphs, yung dalawang boundaries po. At yung surface na na-enclose nila would be our area. Ayan po, isosolve po natin yung area niyan. Wala naman po tayong formula na pwedeng gamitin to solve for that area right there. It's an irregular surface. Now, don't forget po to label the boundaries. Alright? So, both are parabolas actually if you're familiar, no, with this form. Either x or y po ang naka-square. Right? So, may label po dapat ha. And then, of course, our intersections, our intercepts, yung mga points po na determine natin will be necessary later on in our solution. Alright? Ngayon po, try po natin. Anong elementary area ang applicable? So, dalawa lang po. Pwede natin gamitin elementary area din horizontal. Of course, pag horizontal, di pahiga. And the other one is vertical. So, i-try po muna natin yung hindi pwede. Now, ang hindi po pwede rito is vertical. Actually, sa module po, gumawa po ako nung parang answer sheet na kailangan po puro yes lahat ng sagot. 4 na yeses. Mag-isa lang po ng no, hindi pwedeng gamitin yung particular elementary area na yan. Alright. Try po natin ang vertical elementary area. So, magsisimula po tayong, kumbaga, i-shade yan using yung mga maliliit na strips po. Tawag doon elementary area Ang itsura ng ating elementary area, rectangular. Rectangular po yan. So, pag vertical, di patayo. From here, hanggang dun sa rightmost portion ng ating elementary area, which is this point. So, ang ating dalawang, tawag natin doon, end points, end ng ating area, are points. Kaya nga po dun sa questionnaire natin, yes na po yan. Pero, tignan po natin yung upper end sa lower end ng ating elementary area. Yung maliliit na strips na ilalagay natin dyan. Okay. Dito po sa portion na to, ang ating upper portion dito sa boundary na to, tama? Ang ating lower portion dito sa boundary na to. So, wala pong problema yan. But, pagtawid po natin dito, napansin nyo yung upper portion, nag-shift po dun sa kabilang boundary. So, hindi po yan pwede. So, ibig sabihin, ang vertical elementary area po natin ay hindi pwedeng gamitin. Kasi nagbago po ng ng region o ng boundary kung saan nagre-rest yung isang end. Ganon din po sa bottom, doon sa ilalim na end ng ating elementary area. Pagdating after point C po, magbabago na siya ng resting boundary. Dito na po siya. So, hindi po pwede ang vertical elementary area. Samantalang pag horizontal po, simula rito sa ilalim naman pataas. So, bottom up. Kung vertical yan, from left to right, parang accordion door po. Yung hihilahin natin ng pagganon. Yun nga lang, hindi po pare-pareho ang haba. Pero pagka horizontal po, from the bottom, okay, hanggang sa taas. Pansinin nyo po yung left end saka yung right end. Yung left end po natin, dito lang sa boundary na to, nag-rest. Am I correct? From bottom up, nanyo po, isang boundary lang po ang ginamit ng ating left end. Ang right end naman po, dito lang din. Yan, dito lang po siya. So, ibig sabihin, the horizontal elementary area is applicable because ang pinaka bottom na boundary po natin is a point, ang pinakataas naman is another point, no? So pwedeng point po or di kaya line, point or line. Ngayon parehong point, so that is also possible. So ang horizontal elementary area lang po ang pwede natin gamitin to solve for the area of this particular region. Alright. Okay, kuha po tayo ng isa sa mga strips na meron tayo dyan, horizontal strips. Pwede pong dito, pwedeng dyan, pwedeng doon sa taas, anywhere po. Now, ang itsura po ng ating elementary area is rectangular. Yung haba na po na yan is of course x, horizontal po na, na haba. Tapos ito po, dahil maliit lang ito, ang tawag natin dyan, dy or differential of y, or maliit na y, or jutay na y, kaya dy po. Kasi yung x natin sumagad na po tayo samantalang ang y po hanggang dun pa yan kaya differential lang po muna. That makes the product of the two being rectangular an area of a rectangle. Ang tawag po natin doon differential area, kasi po ang ating isa sa mga dimensions, which is in this case the width, is just an element na thin, very thin po yan, manipis, pinakita lang po natin dito makapal siya. Pero yung haba po natin, mahaba na po yan, kaya x. So ito, maliit pa lang na y. So yan po ang ating elementary area. And to solve for our area, we will integrate both sides. Kasi the integral of the differential of a is a already. Yan po. A is equal to, now, and okay, so ito po yung hindi pa natin ma-integrate right now, no? Itong nasa right side. Now this is gonna be a definite integral. Magkakaroon po tayo ng limits. So from where up to where natin i-stretch yung elementary area na yan, parang accordion door po, dito magsisimula hanggang doon. So ano po ang y nito? At ano ang y doon? Kasi ang y po ang i-stretch natin, di ba? So ang y po nito, yun ang magiging lower limit natin. Now, the coordinates of point C is 1, negative 1. So, negative 1 po yung ating value ng y at this point here. Hanggang doon po. Ano ang y ng b? Yung b po natin, ang coordinates nito is 1, 1. So, ito po na y, which is 1 in this case. Right? At pansinin po natin, hindi pa po tayo pwedeng mag-integrate kasi this is in terms of y, no? Napansin nyo po in terms of y. Dapat din po ito, function of y. So, we will find a relationship between x and y. Now, let us isolate our this elementary area over here, no? Take note, ito pong nasa kaliwang edge or endpoint ng ating elementary area is resting on this boundary. Yan po. Nilagay ko lang po dyan, piniklik ko na siya, hindi ko na tinapos. Dun sa right naman po, napansin nyo po, ito yun, this particular boundary over here, which is yun po, yung yan. Now obviously, ang haba na yan, yung x natin, yung haba na yan is yung x nito, tawag dyan x sub r kasi nasa kanan, minus yung x nito, which is x sub l or left, kasi nasa kaliwa po, diba? Kaliwa, kanan. Okay? So, subtract lang po natin yung x sub l from x sub r, and that's gonna be our value of x. So, x is equal to x sub r minus x sub l. Okay. Sino po si x sub r? Siya po yung x nitong boundary na to. So, isosolve po natin yung x dyan. Yun po ang magiging x sub r natin. Sa x sub l natin, yung x naman ito. Okay? So, that's it po. Okay? So, need po natin yung value ng x in terms of y. That is x sub r minus x sub l. So, again po, our x sub r nasa kanan po is the x of this function. So, solve po natin yung x. Yun po. X sub r na siya. Okay? And we will have this, kung napansin nyo po, function of y. Okay? For x sub l naman po, ang x sub l natin sa kaliwa is the x of this particular function. Yan po siya. So, to solve for x sub l, it is going to be, okay, Now, substitute na po natin yung dalawa. Si x sub L, ito. Then, x sub R, I'm sorry. X sub L naman po siya. Then, simplify po yan. Alright? Okay. Ang value ko ng x natin is 2 minus 2y square. Okay. So, again, this is our value of x. Andun po yung papalitan natin x kay area. Then, garan, there you are po. Yan na po siya. Okay. Mag-integrate na po tayo because this function is already a function of y. Okay. So, how do we integrate this one? Since this is just a polynomial, what we can do is, yan, separate the terms. Integrate each of the terms independently. Now, kung napansin nyo, may 2 po tayo dyan. It's a constant, move that out. This is also another constant, move that out. Yan. We have moved them out already. And this is just definition. The integral of a differential, magka-cancel lang po yung effect niyan. And that's going to be y later on, no? While this one po is a power. Obviously. So, it's going to be 2y minus 2 times the square of y all over 2. Cube of y over 3. Sorry. And we will evaluate that from negative 1 to 1. Again, power, no? So that's going to be plus 1 over the same number. Then we will evaluate these two integrals from negative 1 to positive 1. Okay po. Evaluating our integrals between the limits. So just substitute lang po. 1, 1. Yan po siya. This is our integral at the upper limit. And we will do the same. Negative 1 to y, negative 1 to y. That is our integral at the lower limit. Then, simplify na po. Okay, and finally, simplifying. There you are. Remember that negative 1 raised to 3 is negative 1. So, negative times negative will give us positive. Now, removing all parentheses, this one, of course, will change signs. And, yeah. Simplifying further, we'll end up with this value. Take note of the unit. Square units. Units there may take any unit of measure. Centimeter, inch, so on and so forth. So that's it. Thank you very much.